The most powerful person on the planet is also the most hunted. Every single day, there are people out there, some organized, some completely alone, who want the American president dead. And the only thing standing between that person and a leader of the free world is a system so complex, so layered, that most people have absolutely no idea how deep it goes. In 2024 alone, Donald Trump survived 2 separate attempts on his life. 2 in 1 year. And those are just the ones that made it past the planning stage. But here's what nobody's really talking about. The system that's supposed to prevent this, it has blind spots, real ones, and the people running it know it. So before we get into all of it, I want you to sit with a few questions. How does a 20-year-old kid with no criminal record, no military training, and no connections to any known threat group get within 130 meters of a former US president with a rifle and almost pull it off? If the Secret Service spends millions of dollars and thousands of man-hours securing every single event, how does a man hide in the bushes of a golf course, armed, just a few hundred meters from Trump and not get caught until the very last second? Why? After Lincoln, after Kennedy, after Reagan, after every single failure, does this keep happening? And the biggest question of all, is protecting the American president even actually possible? Or is it just damage control? Keep watching, because the answers are not what you'd expect. Let's go back to where this whole thing started. April 14th, 1865, Ford's Theater, Washington, D.C. Abraham Lincoln is sitting in his private box watching a play called Our American Cousin. He has one guard with him, one man, and that man, a guy named John Parker, leaves his post during the show, walks away. Some say he went to get a drink at the saloon next door. Either way, he's gone. John Wilkes Booth walks through the door, steps up behind Lincoln, and shoots him in the back of the head from less than 2 feet away. Lincoln dies the next morning, and America is in shock. But here's the part that's almost hard to believe. After all of that, almost nothing changed. No new protection system, no real investigation into how it happened. The idea of surrounding a president with armed guards around the clock felt wrong to people back then, almost anti-democratic. Presidents were supposed to be accessible, men of the people. So the country moved on, and the president stayed vulnerable. 36 years later, it happened again.
September 6, 1901, President William McKinley is standing at a public expo in Buffalo, New York, shaking hands with a crowd. An open line, no screening, no barriers, just the president and whoever showed up. A man named Leon Czolgosz walks up with a handkerchief wrapped around his hand, hiding a .32 caliber revolver underneath it. He fires twice into McKinley's chest from point-blank range. McKinley dies 8 days later from gangrene caused by the wounds. And this time, something actually changed. Congress officially authorized the Secret Service to protect the president full-time in 1902. Before that, it wasn't even their job. The Secret Service existed to fight counterfeiting. Presidential protection was basically an afterthought. But even after 1902, the protection was still thin, still informal. A few agents who were mostly just present. No real protocols. No real training for this specific job, no system, and the system's biggest test was still 60 years away. November 22nd, 1963, Dallas, Texas. President Kennedy's motorcade is moving through Dealey Plaza. The route had been printed in the Dallas Morning News the day before. Anyone who wanted to know exactly where the president would be, at what time, could just pick up a newspaper. Lee Harvey Oswald is on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository, a building along the route that had not been cleared. He fires 3 shots. 2 hit Kennedy. The fatal one hits him in the head. He's pronounced dead at 1 p.m. What came after Kennedy's assassination wasn't just grief, it was a complete breakdown of confidence in the entire concept of presidential security. The Warren Commission investigation that followed exposed everything. The route was public, buildings weren't cleared, there was no real coordination between the Secret Service, local police, and other agencies. Communication was broken, responsibility was scattered. The President of the United States had been killed in broad daylight in front of hundreds of witnesses in a motorcade that was basically an open invitation. The overhaul that followed was massive. Routes stopped being made public. The presidential limousine got armor plating. Rooftops along motorcade paths started being checked and controlled. Interagency communication became a priority. Protocols were written, real ones, for the first time. It felt like finally the system was catching up. And then March 30th, 1981 happened. Ronald Reagan walks out of the Washington Hilton Hotel after delivering a speech. His limo is parked about 15 feet from the exit. 15 feet, a 30-second walk. John Hinckley Jr. is standing in the crowd of press and onlookers right outside, a crowd that had not been fully screened. He fires 6 rounds in 1.7 seconds. One bullet hits Reagan under his left arm, ricochets off a rib, and stops less than 1 inch from his heart. 1 inch.
Reagan survived, but the message was loud and clear. Even with everything they'd built after Kennedy, a man could still walk up to the President of the United States and almost kill him in broad daylight.
So here's the pattern, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Lincoln dies, the Secret Service gets involved. McKinley dies, protection becomes an official job. Kennedy dies, the whole system gets rebuilt from scratch. Reagan almost dies, crowd protocols get completely rethought. Every single upgrade came after a failure. The system has always been reactive, always designing the next layer of protection based on the last tragedy, always making sure the previous attack couldn't happen again. Which is exactly why what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania in July 2024 was so alarming, because it wasn't the previous attack, it was something different. July 13th, 2024, Butler, Pennsylvania. Trump is holding a campaign rally in an open field. Thousands of people are there. It's a sunny Saturday afternoon. Standard setup: stage, crowd, security perimeter, local police coordinating with Secret Service. And on a rooftop about 130 meters from the stage, close enough that you could see the stage clearly with the naked eye, a 20-year-old named Thomas Matthew Crooks is lying flat with an AR-style rifle. He fires 8 rounds. One bullet grazes Trump's right ear. Another kills a man named Corey Comparato, a former fire chief who threw himself in front of his family to shield them. 2 others are critically wounded. Secret Service takes down Crooks within seconds of the first shot, but the damage is done. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable, because in the days and weeks that followed, investigators started piecing together what actually happened, and the picture was not good. Local law enforcement had spotted Crooks acting suspiciously before the shooting. He was seen with a rangefinder, a device used to measure distances to a target. Officers reported him. There were radio communications about him. Someone even tried to get eyes on the roof he was on. But the rooftop he fired from? It was outside the Secret Service's designated security perimeter. It was technically local police responsibility, and in that gap, that gray area between who was responsible for what, Crooks set up, aimed, and fired. A gap. That's all it takes. The aftermath brought congressional hearings, internal investigations, and the resignation of the Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle. Agents and officers pointed fingers at each other. Everyone had seen something. Nobody had acted fast enough. And the question that hung over all of it was simple. How? How, with all the technology, all the training, all the resources, all the lessons learned from every previous failure, how does a guy with a rifle get on a rooftop 130 meters from the former president of the United States and almost pull it off? The answer is complicated, and we'll get to it. But first, Butler wasn't even the only attempt that year.
September 15th, 2024, West Palm Beach, Florida. Trump is playing golf at his Trump International Golf Club. This is a location he visits regularly, his home turf essentially. The Secret Service knows the property well. A man named Ryan Wesley Routh had been hiding in the tree line along the golf course perimeter for approximately 12 hours. He had an AK-style rifle, he had a scope, he had a GoPro camera. Investigators believe he intended to film the assassination. A Secret Service agent spotted the rifle barrel poking through the fence, drew his weapon, and Routh fled. He was arrested on a highway shortly after. Trump was on the course at the time, but was not in Routh's direct line of sight. Routh later told investigators he had been waiting for Trump for hours. He'd planned it, prepared for it, and he came terrifyingly close to having an opportunity. 2 attempts, 1 year, same person. And this is the part where we need to stop and actually understand what's going on, because these 2 incidents reveal something important about the modern threat landscape that the Secret Service is dealing with every single day.
So let's talk about how presidential protection actually works right now, because most people's mental image of it is just big guys in suits with earpieces standing near the president, and that's maybe 5% of the picture. The real system is something else entirely. It starts days before the president even arrives at a location, sometimes weeks. A team of Secret Service advanced agents descends on the venue. Whether it's a hotel, an arena, an outdoor field, doesn't matter. They walk every inch of it. They map it. They identify every possible entry point, every elevated position, every blind spot. Every vendor who's going to be inside the perimeter gets background checked. Every vehicle that's going to be anywhere near the route gets flagged and tracked. The catering staff, the cleaning crew, the technicians setting up the sound system, everyone goes through a process. Then they build what's essentially 3 rings of security around the president. The outer ring is the widest. It covers the surrounding area. Roads, nearby buildings, airspace. Local law enforcement usually works this layer, coordinating with Secret Service. The middle ring tightens around the venue itself. This is where you start seeing magnetometers, bag checks, credential verification. Nobody gets through without being screened. The inner ring is the bubble directly around the president. This is pure Secret Service. Hand-picked agents
experts who've trained specifically for close protection. They move with him, they position themselves based on threat assessments, and they're running calculations constantly. Where are the exits? Where are the crowds thickest? Where's the car? What's the fastest route out? And at the center of all of it, the presidential limousine, nicknamed the Beast, and the name is earned. The current version is a Cadillac Beast vehicle that weighs somewhere around 20,000 pounds. The doors are as thick as a Boeing 757's fuselage. The glass can withstand armor-piercing rounds. The tires are Kevlar reinforced. They can keep moving even if they're completely shredded. There's an oxygen supply inside in case of a chemical attack. There's blood of the president's type stored on board. The fuel tank is armored and foam sealed to prevent explosion. It is, for all practical purposes, a moving fortress. But here's the thing about fortresses. They only protect you when you're inside them.
And that's where the real challenge lives, because a president can't govern from inside a box. He has to move, he has to appear in public, he has to shake hands and give speeches and walk across open ground. And every single time he does that, there's a window, a moment of exposure. The Secret Service calls this the attack window, the period of time when the president is most vulnerable. And everything they do is designed to shrink that window as much as possible. Control the route, control the crowd, control the airspace, control the information about where he'll be and when. Speaking of airspace, that's a whole layer most people don't even think about. Every time the president is at a location, the FAA establishes a temporary flight restriction, a TFR, around that area. No private aircraft, no drones, nothing gets into that airspace with explicit authorization. And if something does enter that airspace, there are systems in place, military aircraft on standby, anti-drone technology, radar monitoring to deal with it fast. After 9/11, those protocols got a lot more serious. The idea that someone could use an aircraft as a weapon completely changed how the Secret Service thinks about vertical threats. And now, with drones becoming cheaper and more accessible every year, that threat has evolved again. A drone that costs $500 from an electronics store can carry a payload, can be flown by someone with no special training, can appear almost out of nowhere. The Secret Service has counter-drone units now, electronic jamming equipment, detection systems that can identify an unauthorized drone and neutralize it before it gets close. But it's a constant arms race. The technology to threaten keeps getting cheaper and easier, and the technology to defend has to keep pace. But here's the thing, all of that, all of those layers, all of that technology, it's built to stop a known type of threat, something you can plan for, something that fits a pattern.
The thing that keeps security professionals up at night isn't the organized group. It isn't the foreign government or the trained operative. Those threats, as serious as they are, leave footprints. They require communication, coordination, resources. And where there's communication, there's intelligence. Where there's intelligence, there's a chance to intercept. The thing that's almost impossible to stop is one person, acting alone, telling nobody, planning in silence. The lone wolf.
Think about Thomas Matthew Crooks for a second. 20 years old, no criminal record, no known affiliations with any extremist group, no red flags in any database, no suspicious financial transactions, no communications with known bad actors that intelligence agencies could intercept. Just a guy who decided, at some point, alone in his own head, that he was going to do this. He searched online for information, publicly available information. He bought a legal firearm. He drove to the rally location days before the event and did his own reconnaissance. Investigators found he had taken photos of the stage area beforehand. He showed up on the day, found a rooftop that sat in a jurisdictional gray area, and he waited. No network to infiltrate, no communications to intercept, no financial trail that stood out, nothing that any intelligence system, human or artificial, could have grabbed onto and said, this person is about to do something. That's the lone wolf problem. And it's not new, but it's getting worse because the internet has done something that nobody fully anticipated. It's created a world where a person can radicalize completely alone. No meetings, no recruitment, no human contact with any organization. Just a person, a screen, and an endless supply of content that pushes them further and further toward a breaking point. The old model of threat detection was built around networks. You find one person, you pull the thread, you unravel the whole thing. You monitor communications between known bad actors, you infiltrate groups, you follow the money. None of that works on one person who keeps everything inside their own head. So what do?
This is where behavioral analysis comes in, and it's probably the most important and most controversial tool in the modern security arsenal. The concept is called behavior, not identity, and the idea is this. Instead of trying to figure out who might be a threat based on their background, their beliefs, their demographics, you watch how people behave, because certain behaviors are consistent across almost every attack ever studied, regardless of who the attacker was or what they believed.
pre-attack surveillance. That's one of the biggest ones. Almost every person who has ever carried out an attack on a public figure visited the location beforehand. They watched, they timed things, they took photos, they studied sight lines and entry points and distances. Crooks did this. Routh did this. He was in that tree line for 12 hours, which means he'd almost certainly done prior reconnaissance to know that spot existed and that it gave him a view of the course. So trained security personnel and increasingly AI systems are looking for this. People who show up to a location and don't behave the way normal attendees behave. People who are watching the wrong things, who are more interested in the exits than the stage, who are measuring distances with their eyes or their phones, who keep moving around to get different angles of view. The Secret Service calls these people pre-attack indicators, and identifying them before anything happens is one of the most critical skills in protective intelligence. Facial recognition software now runs in real time at major events. Camera systems scan crowds constantly. AI models trained on thousands of hours of footage have learned to flag unusual behavior patterns. A person standing still in a moving crowd, someone repeatedly looking at a specific area, someone whose body language doesn't match the emotional energy of the people around them. It sounds almost science fiction, but it's real, it's deployed, and it's getting more sophisticated every year. The problem, and there's always a problem, is false positives. The system flags someone, agents respond. Turns out it's just a nervous person or someone with social anxiety who moves differently than the crowd. You scale that up across thousands of events and millions of people, and the noise becomes overwhelming. And then there's the civil liberties question, which is its own entire conversation. How much surveillance is acceptable in the name of protecting one person? Where's the line between security and a surveillance state? These are questions that don't have clean answers, and the people running these systems know it.
But let's say the worst happens anyway. Let's say every layer fails. The behavioral analysis misses something. The perimeter has a gap. The lone wolf gets through. What happens to the country? This is where most people's knowledge stops, because what comes next is one of the most classified and carefully maintained systems in the entire US government. It's called continuity of government, COG for short. And the basic idea is this: the United States of America cannot stop functioning, not for a single day, not for a single hour, regardless of what happens to any individual, including the president. The succession line everyone knows. President goes down, vice president takes over. Vice president goes down, Speaker of the House, and so on down a list of about 18 people in a specific order, all established by law. But COG goes much deeper than that. At every major national event, the State of the Union address is the most famous example, one senior government official is deliberately kept away, doesn't attend, is taken to an undisclosed secure location before the event begins. This person is called the designated survivor. The logic is brutal in its simplicity. If something catastrophic happens at that event and wipes out the president, the vice president, the cabinet, the congressional leadership all at once, there is still someone with constitutional authority to lead the government, someone who is alive, safe, and legally empowered to act as president immediately. It sounds like something from a TV show. There's literally a TV show named after it, but it's completely real. It's been standard protocol since the Cold War, when the threat of a nuclear strike that could decapitate the entire US government in a single moment was considered very, very real. And beyond the designated survivor, there are hardened underground facilities, Mount Weather in Virginia, Raven Rock Mountain Complex in Pennsylvania, Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado, locations designed to survive a direct nuclear strike and allow the government to keep functioning from underground if the surface becomes uninhabitable. There are secure communication systems that operate independently of the normal infrastructure, systems that would keep working even if the internet went down, even if the power grid failed, even if major cities were gone. There are pre-positioned resources, pre-written executive orders ready to be signed, pre-established chains of command for every military branch. The entire system is designed around one core idea: America is bigger than any one person, even the president, and no attack, no matter how devastating, gets to push a pause button on the United States of America.
So here's where we land. After everything, after Lincoln and McKinley and Kennedy and Reagan, after Butler and West Palm Beach, after billions of dollars and thousands of personnel and decades of evolution, after all of it, is it possible to completely protect the President of the United States? No. And the people who do this job for a living will tell you that themselves. Not publicly, not officially, but they know it. Complete protection is a mathematical impossibility. There are too many variables, too many people, too many locations, too many ways a determined individual can find a gap that nobody thought to cover. What the Secret Service actually does, what all of this is actually about, is probability reduction. They can't make the threat zero, but they can make it smaller, and smaller, and smaller again. They can make the odds so bad for anyone thinking about it that most people never try. They can catch the ones who do try early enough, often enough, that the system holds, most of the time. And the ones who get close, the crooks, the Rouths, they become case studies. Every detail of what happened, what was missed, what the gap was, gets studied, analyzed, and used to build the next layer of protection. The system learns from its failures. It always has. The question is whether it can learn fast enough, whether the technology to protect can stay ahead of the technology to threaten, whether behavioral analysis and AI can close the gap that human intelligence weaves open when a lone wolf decides to act alone. Because right now, that gap still exists, and somewhere out there, there's probably someone sitting alone, in silence, thinking about it. That's the impossible job, and the people doing it show up every single day anyway.